G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys had a good weekend and your football teams did well, your Supercoach teams did well. Everybody was well. Hope you just had a good weekend in general, right? So yeah, let's get stuck into the video. Before we do, actually, if you can like, subscribe, comment anything that you guys want to see or what you don't want to see that I'm doing at shit, whatever you guys can do to sort of help me sort of design the videos the way that you guys want them definitely helps. So that would be much appreciated. But what we're going to do in this video is we're going to basically go through how to navigate the buys coming up. So we've got the dreaded buys coming up, but I think if you look at it as a time that you can really start to make some progress on your opponents or on your rivals in Supercoach, I think that's the right way to go about it rather than thinking that your scores are going to go down because they obviously are, but understanding how to get through these buys is really important. So I wanted to make a video that shows the strategy on how to get through the buys. Now, I'm no expert, no, don't get me wrong, and it is all opinion-based Supercoach stuff, right? But this is how I sort of structure my team for the buys and some tactics on how you guys can get through it with your teams. Not just talking about how exactly my team is going to get through the buys. I want it to be more of a thing for people that are maybe newer to Supercoach or just want a little bit of help on how to navigate the buys. So, like I said, it is all opinion stuff. So don't shoot the messenger, but I'll die on my hill of opinion. So let's have a look. So this is our cute little slide, navigating the buys. Let's have a look. This is our strategy. So I don't want to talk about too much about these points because they'll be brought up a lot throughout the whole video just in general. But these are sort of the three rules that we're going to sort of go off at this stage. So we've got trading in primos the week after their buy. Might seem very sort of obvious, and it is, but we'll explain why and what the difference can be throughout the video. But basically, this just means, for instance, this weekend, the Gold Coast have the buy. This week you can trade in who you want. But the week after, looking to trade in those players that have already had a buy means that throughout the rest of the buys, you're going to have someone playing rather than someone that has a buy into the future. Unless you really think it's worth it, it's probably better buying someone that has already had their buy. And we'll do comparison later to show you what I mean by that. Plan what positions you have to fill. So if you have, for example, my team has 3 premium spots left. We have 3 rookies to get off the field left. I have 2 midfielders and a forward. I want to try to plan my team so I bring in the midfielders or the forwards at those buys and see if I can make it a way where it just flows with my structure and my buy-in structure. Because I don't want to be waiting either. So I want to be making the trades when I can, as quickly as I can, to get my team full primo for as long as a period as possible. And obviously having trades if things go wrong. And then the other thing is to assess your team, your team's situation and the goals that it has. So if you're playing for total points, your goals are different to if you're playing for league wins. So if you're playing for league wins, look at what other teams are doing and see where you can get a leg up on teams in those rounds specifically. If you're going for total points, your strategy is a little bit different, and that's what I'm doing at the moment. So I'll take you through that tactic as well throughout the video. But it's really important to assess that because I can, there's plenty of videos out there, sure, and they're all trying to say the right thing and they're all doing the right thing. But if you ask me a simple question like, should I trade in Darcy Cameron? It depends, because for my team, that's horrible. I've already got 3 premium ruckmen. I can't fit him in, right? Do I think he's a good option? I do. I do think Darcy Cameron's actually a really good option. He's good value for money. I think he's going to average 105 plus as a sole ruck for Collingwood, and at 400k, that's gold. But is it worth me getting rid of one of my big dogs? No. But for a team that has maybe 1 or 2 rucks, makes sense. It makes sense. I can see why it makes sense. And so those are the little things that you have to take into account when you're building your side and planning for these buys or just planning a team in general. So this first graphic here, just to show a bit about the strategy I was talking about before, we're just going to use these 2 players as an example. So we're going to use Luke Davies-Uniacke and Zach Merritt. Both had fantastic seasons. Both very similar in all the major statistics that we've had. And this is the example that I want to look at. So we've got Baz Smith here basically as our gold standard player. So he's our gold standard midfield player, 640k, averaging 125 on the season at a total points of 1,379. So he's your gold standard. The next two players, Luke Davies-Uniacke and Zach Merrett, are that next rung down, right? They're averaging 115 basically. So you can see here, both averaging 114. The difference is literally 0.1 because there's 1 point difference in their scores throughout the whole totality of the season, and their price is basically very similar. There's $10,000 between the two. If I was approaching this without any buys for the rest of the season, I would choose Zach Merrett. That's my preference. But because of the buys, and depending on the timing of when you bring them in, I would be leaning towards Luke Davies-Uniacke. What is not the person that I personally think is better, I actually think it's Zach Merrett, but because of the buys, I would choose Luke Davies-Uniacke. And let's get into the reason why. So this is explaining, and I'll run through it because it is very confusing, so you're going to have to stay with me. And if you've lost me, then I'm sorry. I'm just a little bit of a stats nerd when it comes to this stuff. But you can see here the prices are the same. Basically, the averages are the same. The total points are the same. Okay, so we're just going to do, you have to make some assumptions and basically put the odds in your favour. So if we're going to trade into Luke Davies-Uniacke and Zach Merrett next round, so at the end of this round, if we were to trade into Luke Davies-Uniacke or Zach Merrett, Luke would have 12 games to play for the rest of the season. Zach Merrett would only have 11, and that's due to his bye in round 15. Okay, so let's assume that on that round, in round 15, Luke Davies-Uniacke scores 115. And I think that's fair because that's his average, right? So he scores 115. Zach obviously has the bye, scores 0. It's not a clear 115 point loss because you have to realise is that you will have a rookie to replace Zach Merrett. So you won't lose 115 points. You'll lose the difference between the rookie and Luke Davies-Uniacke. So let's assume that the rookie that you have to replace Zach Merrett in that round scores 65. What I think is generous because you got to imagine all these rookies that you've got now that are doing really well, like your Rechkos, some people are holding on to Cook, players like that, or any sort of midfield, you got Angus Anderson, guys like that, they're probably going to be gone for you to upgrade to guys like this. So at this stage, you're probably holding on to sort of your last kind of all right rookies, and you're going to be relying on these rookies that come in the mid-season draft to fill these spots. So 65, I think, is being generous. I think that's a fair rookie average. That's a 50-point difference, okay? And while that might not seem like much, the reason why I had Baz Smith on the last slide, and we'll go back and have a look just for a second, is that I feel like Baz has consistently outperformed these two by a long way. He's only about 120 points up after 11 games. Okay, and that's the difference between Baz Smith and these two, right? So for Zach Merrett to be worth it, he has to average about 5 points more than Luke Davies-Uniacke from the start of round 13 to the end of the season. And that's to break even with Luke Davies-Uniacke. So you just have to keep that in mind when you're picking a player that's coming up to these rounds. If you're like, all right, I've got enough money in round 13, next round, to bring someone in, and we're in this exact situation next week and you have these two players to pick between, personally, I would be leaning towards Luke Davies-Uniacke because there is a chance that Luke Davies-Uniacke outperforms Zach anyway, right? That's not outrageous to say. I'm not saying that's my opinion. I actually think Zach Merrett will probably outperform Luke Davies-Uniacke. But with the sort of like a 5-point average handicap that is now being given to Zach Merrett, I would lean towards Luke Davies-Uniacke. Okay? And right there I'm not saying that Zach Merrett is the wrong choice because Zach Merrett is a good choice and I think he's a really good choice. But if I was to pick a player out of these two next round or before Zach Merrett's bye, that player would be Luke Davies-Uniacke because he doesn't have the bye, what basically hands me 50 points before it's even started. There is a world where this doesn't matter and you get really lucky and the rookie that plays instead of Zach Merrett scores 115, but you have to put the odds in your favour, I think, and the odds for me favour Luke Davies-Uniacke. unless you just get a really good feeling, and I'll go with those as well. I'll get gut feel sometime and just go that player. And if you just got a feeling Zach Merritt's just going to have a heater, then go Zach Merritt. Who the fuck am I? So that's a strategy that I think you guys, and it's more to the first one, bring in primos after their bye. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind of, and you can compare players from different positions. You can do that with forward, midfielder, defender, and just see the difference and what's worth bringing in if you're going to bring in a player that's outside and still has a bye to come from here on out. Now let's go through the actual buys themselves. So we'll have a look at the buys, have a look at what players I think are relevant. There probably is more players. So if there's players that are not on this list that you believe are relevant, I don't know, just either roast me in the comments or just put it in the comments and ask about them, and I can give you my opinion on that player. But these are the ones that I thought were relevant. And these are the players that you want to be trading in after the bye. So moving into round 12 now, you want to be bringing these players in next round. Okay, and the other thing is you probably don't want to be trading into the player while they have the bye because you're missing out on the points that week. So you definitely don't want to be trading in a Wayne Miller this week because, yes, there is a player that everyone will have a bye in the future, but you're not going to get the points this week, right? So it does even out, but it's just something to be mindful of. So the teams that have the bye: Adelaide, Gold Coast, North Melbourne, Port Adelaide in round 12. The defenders that I think are good options or a option are Wayne Miller. So for me, good option, scores well. If you're confident in his body, I think it's a really good pick. Especially with trades running out and with the amount of carnage that have happened this year, I'm trying to stay away from injury-prone players because I don't want to get stuck where I have not enough trades. If you have enough trades, I think he's a good option. Luke Parker, I think, is a real sleeper. He's in 10% of sides or something like that, so I don't think he's not exactly a pod, but people are starting to go cold on him because he's had a few down weeks. I think Cam Zohar will return to the forward line, and I still think Parker's playing really well without getting rewarded with points, and I think that'll change. I think early he got rewarded well. I think it's just a few little things that Parker scored. I think he's just been a little bit unlucky. I like that option at 470k. I think he can be top 8. And coming off a bye really early, so you get him for a long period of time. John Noble, I think he's probably overs in terms of price. Had a really good run in Darwin, but you run the risk with John Noble into the future. Has had a history of scoring these really sort of big stints, but then sort of comes back to the pack. So just be wary with John Noble. I don't think he's a top 8 defender, or top 6. Could be top 8. But at the price, I'd rather take the risk with a Luke Parker. Josh Worrell, I have him my side. I like him as an option. I think he's going to get better scoring-wise when he can intercept more and not be so accountable. What relies on people like Keane coming back into the side and Butts into the side. I think he scores well when they're there. He reminds me of a Tom Stewart. He needs those other players to be the accountable ones, and he can be the interceptor. Scored really well on the weekend. Is cheap. I think he's about 450. Is a good option. Is coming up after the bye. If you don't have him, could be a risk. There's some risk attached, but the rewards could be there. And Bodie Euland, sort of priced for what he is. He's about 510k. Sorry, guys. I think he's probably worth about that. I don't think he's been super consistent, having a really good season. Does he have another level where he can sort of get those extra 5 points average? I'm not too sure. I don't know if defense is the place that you want to be skimping out or really being a cheap ass. There's potential for really high points, and I think you need those top guys. But that bottom sort of area, there's a little bit of area to take the risk to try to make up some ground. Players like, I think Parker can do that. There are some players that we'll talk about later that I think can make up some ground for your sides if you're looking to take a risk in that area. Midfielder Zach Butters, if you don't have him already, get him. Simple as that. Luke Davies-Uniacke, we spoke about him before. I think he's a good option, averaging 114, about 560k. Give me the reasons why not, to be honest. He's going to be coming off his bye. I think he's a great option. Jordan Dawson, these options are all good. I think this is a really good week to bulk up your midfield group. After this round, get a midfielder in because you've got Jordan Dawson at 570k. has the ability to go like huge. Can go 110 plus. Is a top line midfielder in my eyes. Noah Anderson has that ability to have seen it before. He's a little bit cheaper. Obviously has this early buy and has come back into form. So I'll just be wary about who gets the tag. I think he's a tag target along with Christian Petrarca. And that's why I'm going to be going with Matt Rowell. So I'm going to be going with Matt Rowell. I'm actually disappointed he hit out such a big score because obviously he's costed a little bit more than he would have, but also a lot of people have sort of jumped onto him because I've been sort of eyeing this off for a while because I thought after this buy, he's the one I want to bring in. I think he averaged 115 plus last year. He's obviously the reigning Brownlow medalist. He's your in and under bull, clearance, tackles. Those guys don't regularly get tagged. So I think he's a really great option. And can be a 115 plus sort of guy. So you're basically getting that Zach Merritt, Luke Davies-Uniacke, has an early buy for a discounted price. Sign me up. The issue with Matt Rowell is obviously gone down with injury twice this season. So there is that huge risk there. Tristan Sherry, he's going to be primed for the picking. If you're looking for a ruck after round 12, he's your man, clearly. Forwards, Christian Petrarca, Harry Sheezel, top 3 forwards, top 2, they're F1, F2. You need to get them, and they're probably a really good time to buy if you don't have them already. Most sides probably have them. Maybe Christian Petrarca less so than Sheezel. If you don't have Petrarca, probably a good time to bring him in. Just coming off a ton, sort of hovering around that 500 sort of range. Good time to bring him in. These next two are sort of similar priced and have different sort of... They're just different commodities, I think, in Supercoach. So Jason Horne-Francis is a really sort of high risk, high reward player. When I think of Port Adelaide and what is a good sign for me when I'm picking a Supercoach team, I think of who are the best 3 players. And I think of Butters, Rosie, Jason Horne-Francis. Right? I think that's a good sign. If the player is outside of that 3, I get a little bit worried. And that's what puts me off about Took, is because I think of Gold Coast, I think of Petrarca, Anderson, Rowell. And that's just a little rule that I go off. And then I'm thinking about Took, and I'm like, he's not going to get the midfield minutes. He's not going to get the role. But he is extremely consistent and has been proven to score outside of getting CBAs. But Jason Horne-Francis should be getting those minutes. And I know it's going to be a roller coaster with the rest of the guys, but I think if he gets it right, the potential there... If Jason Horne-Francis gets it wrong, I think he averages what Took Miller probably does. If he gets it right, I think he can be above that. And that's just my opinion. So take it as you will. Thing is, sometimes I prefer to go for the consistency with someone like a Took, because Took only has to consistently get 5 or 10 points better, and then he can sit at 100. Whereas like Jason Horne-Francis really has to just bang out, these spike games and these superstar games. But I think he is capable. So depends what sort of route you want to go down. I'll leave that one up to you guys. Round 13 bye. So the round that's least affected by the buys. We only got the 2 teams out, the Giants and the Tigers. Not too many relevant players, but still a really good opportunity to bring in a player after this bye. So Lockie Whitfield, Lockie Ash, and Jaden Short are the defenders that I have on the list. Whitfield is kind of in an injury cloud at the moment. Well, not kind of, he is in an injury cloud. I have him in my side. I feel like I've got good coverage, so I'm all good sort of covering him and definitely will hold until I find out that he's missing for 10 weeks or whatever. But for now, definitely a hold. His buy doesn't really affect me that much, so we'll continue to hold him. Ash, I think, is a good option. He's playing midfield minutes, and I know people are a lot down on that, but I think that gives him the ability to sort of take it to another level as well. The tag generally goes to Callahan, so I think Lockie Ash is a good option at a decent price. Jaden Short scares me, but his consistency can't be ignored. I'm wary about going players from that really sort of bottom rung sides, because there's the ability for them to just get smashed off the park, and the scoring for them teams just get less. A team that scores less and loses more leads to less score involvements, leads to less goal assists. So you just have to be mindful that they get the ball less generally. So you just have to be mindful. Mind you, he takes kick-ins, and heaps teams are going to score heavily against the Tigers because they suck. So he's going to be taking lots of kick-ins because the other teams are going to score lots of points. So you can have that in mind as well. Midfielders, Clayton Oliver, I've held him from the start of the season. I did not expect him to be this good, but he's been unbelievable. And he's basically forced me to keep him now. So well done, Clary. That's unreal. Good option to bring in. Tim Taranto, I think, is similarly priced to Finn Callaghan, so they're both around that 500 range. The issue that I have with Tim Taranto is that I think he's playing well for this average. So if you're happy to have what he's scoring now, by all means, go Tim Taranto. Finn Callaghan is basically averaging pretty similar, and we feel like he's playing badly. So I think the upsides with Finn Callaghan, I wouldn't be going Taranto personally. But if you think Taranto can all of a sudden sort of have a spike sort of uprising in average, then go for it. I just don't think it's there. Rucks, I didn't think anyone was sort of relevant. And then our forwards, I kind of only thought it was Jack Ross that was relevant. But Brent Daniels, I think maybe could push in there as maybe like a coverage sort of player or someone that's cheap if you need someone for an unders price. Jack Ross, I think Richmond actually have quite an experienced midfield when they're all there. You think about Prestia, Ross, Taranto, Hopper. I just get worried that they're going to push one of those guys out to blood a kid through there, and they've just put Seth Campbell through there. And I know it's because Prestia's out of the side at the moment, but Ross could be that guy getting pushed out of that midfield rotation at some stage, or at least affected by it. But his consistency can't be denied at this stage, and is definitely an option. Round 14. So I've got a lot of players on the list because they're kind of relevant, but then they're sort of kind of not as well. So you've got Collingwood, Carlton, Hawks, and Dockers. The Hawks are generally not too relevant at all in terms of Supercoach. The other three teams, I've got a fair few players on here, but the quality, I'm not too sure. So the defenders, I'm just going to lump them all together. Josh Dacos, Jordan Clark, Jack Crisp, James Sicily, Luke Ryan, Dan Houston, and Nick Newman. All basically tier 3 defenders, I would say. But you pay that tier 3 price as well. The ones that I would be sort of leaning towards are the ones that I think can get up there in price, that I think can score large. And I think those players are like Dan Houston, Luke Ryan, and maybe Jordan Clark. But they just haven't done it. And a lot of people will probably say, well, why do you think it's those? Like they're averaging the same as the others. I feel like the others are playing pretty well-ish to get what they're getting. I think Luke Ryan, once Alex Pearce comes back, doesn't have to defend as much. I think his scoring can go up. Jordan Clark has clearly shown the ability to do it sometimes. And same with Dan Houston. I just don't think the others have ever shown an ability. I think James Sicily doesn't really have that role as a rebounding defender anymore. They have plenty of those at the Hawks. Look, risky one for defenders, that whole list. I don't know if I'd be going with any of those, but if you want to take a risk, go for it. Midfielders, so Nick Dacos is a great buy right now. If he's still a similar price buy this round, still a great buy. So I'd be all for Nick Dacos if he's at a good price, or even if he's sort of not at a good price, it's a good option to bring in if you don't have him. Caleb Sarong could be coming back around that time, had a change in form recently, and looks pretty good. It's a risk, but you're basically paying for that, like you're paying a discounted price for that risk, right? Has the ability to score really large though. We've seen that with Caleb Sarong in the past, so be mindful of that. Could be a good option. John Newcomb and Sam Walsh, I think, are basically pretty close to being similar. I wouldn't be going near Jai. He basically was playing really well, but is also really sore at the moment. He could be right after his bye, but I just don't think he has the ceiling, unless we see him and Day together and something changes. But just have a watch of that. Sam Walsh, I think this is who he is. He could possibly get better. Like in terms of, I think his average can maybe go up 5 points max. If you got him, I think he's a hold. But if you don't, I just don't know if I'd be taking the risk at his price. Paddy Cripps has the ability, and he's been a Supercoach star in the past for us, Paddy Cripps, and I love Paddy Cripps. I don't think he deserved the heat that he was getting. I think with the new coach there, with Josh Fraser going back while taking over the reins, I think they're sort of going back to what they know, but then also blooding the youth around that, and that includes Patrick Cripps in the guts, and relying on him to be a clearance beast. And I think he's getting back to that, and I think he looks good. So it could be an option. Risky one, but could be an option. And the thing is, he's going to get out there. Like, he's going to play. He's going to be. I think he can be consistent, semi sort of what he got back to, maybe like 105, what would be pretty good. George Stewart, I think, is the sleeper of this whole video. If I was going to endorse a player more, I'm not going to endorse a player more than George Stewart. And that's just, I'm really bullish on George Stewart. I think if you're looking for a midfielder after the round 14 bye, that's where I would go. It does have a lot to depend on the next couple of weeks, but I think George Stewart's not out of form. He was out of role with Michael Voss. This is a guy that scored 17 tons last year. 17 tons. Go have a look. He was rattling off hundreds last year. Averaged 112. He was over 600k to start the year and then lost his role and then got dropped from the side. New coach comes. Josh Fraser comes in. Gets straight back into the midfield. Bangs out 126. He's also scored 3 or 4 tons even when Voss was in the side. Like when he was playing and Voss was coaching, sorry. So at 480k, if you see him bang out sort of 2 tons before his bye, I think he's a great option, in my opinion. If you're looking for another midfielder as a pod midfielder, he's currently owned in 0.2% of sides. A lot of people are going to go on Raul. A lot of people are going to look to the names. Don't sleep on George Stewart. Trust me. Andrew Brayshaw, I don't know if I'd be going there. Unless we see a really sort of uptick, I think there's only points for him to be lost because Sarong's going to come back. Young's going to come back. They're going to take midfield minutes. He's a fantastic player, a really selfless player. I just don't know if he's selfish enough to get us the points that we need. The rucks. This is a tricky one because Darcy Cameron I would endorse now. In 3 weeks' time, he's probably going to be 500 and something plus K. Probably not worth it. I'd probably steer towards one of the other guys, like a Luke Jackson. I think you don't really want to be losing not only points to these super ruckmen, the top 4, your Jackson, your Gawn, Sherry, Grundy. You're losing more than that because they're really safe captaincy options. They're captaincy options, those other 4 guys, and they consistently get 140 plus scores. I don't know if Cameron is going to get that consistently for you. So you're losing 40, 50 points if you count the captaincy. It's up to you guys, but personally, it's not mine. No, my choice. These forwards is a real funny bunch. It's a mix. So Jordan De Goey's on fire. He's got so many. I've got scars from Jordan De Goey because he's a star. Clearly, he's been a star in the past as well. But body lets him down and consistency. But he looks good this season. He looks good. So, buy and beware with Jordan De Goey. I feel like he's the biggest risk and reward of the whole lot. Jagger Smith. See, this is one where I think a lot of people are going to be really pig-headed and not want to trade back into Jagger Smith. If you've got him, hold him. Now that he's got DPP in the forward line, hold him. But if you had him, traded him out like myself, if you think he's the guy with new coach, CBAs, clearly he pushed out a ton on the weekend, he can be a viable option, and don't be so pig-headed to be like, I'm not trading in someone that I already traded out. If that's your guy, and you think he's going to be F6 and you're getting him for 390k, make the move. Bite the bullet. It doesn't matter who the trade's on. It doesn't matter if you're trading now for someone like a Jagger Smith or a Murphy Reid. If you think Jagger Smith is going to score more than Murphy Reid from the round 14 bye, but you've already had Jagger Smith, and that's the reason why you're not getting him, that's just bad, Supercoach. So just get him. If you think he's the guy, get him. Murphy Reid, he's in my team. He's been one of the worst picks for me this season, but starting to come good. When Sarong was out, I was really hopeful he would get more centre bounce, and he did. And he scored 126. I'm really hoping that Longmuir looks at that. I don't know where he can play Sarong, though, for when he comes back in, but I'm hoping those guys to just stay out of the side, and Murphy Reid can continue to just rack up the ball, because he is a genius with it. He's a genius with the ball. He's really effective and really damaging, so he can score huge Supercoach points quickly, especially when Freo are up and about. Shea Bolton, I think Shea Bolton is a sleeper pick. You're probably going to be able to get this guy because of his up and down nature for sort of like a 450, but he's averaging more than Cozzy Pickett this season. And people think Cozzy Pickett's just a must-buy, but Shea Bolton's not because of his inconsistency. I think it's Shea Bolton is your perfect player to have. You got 23 players with the flex. I don't mind having a guy that gives you that spike score, that can really, he's obviously got the floor, but if all your other players are primos and you got this one player that has the ability to hit 140s, I don't mind that as a pick, and you're going to be able to get him fairly cheap at some stage, hopefully around 14 after the bye. And he just dished out a poor score on the weekend, I think, or poorish score, so it could be a reduced price by then. And Treacy is, I think, F3 or F4, who would have thought? Obviously a superstar player, probably the best key forward in the game at the moment. It's a risky pick. I don't know if that's someone that I would go, but his consistency can't be denied. I was thinking about him for a long time. And the thing is, the week that I was going to bring him in, the reason I didn't was because it was projected to rain that week. He ended up scoring like a 30. And I was like, thank God. But if you account that in and he's still F3, I think he's a good get. He has to be, right? Round 15 bye. So you got the Lions, Essendon, the Swans, and West Coast. So your defenders we're looking at here, we've got Archie Roberts. I think he's going to cop another tag this weekend. I think his price is going to be really prime around this round 15 area. People will be put off because I think he will probably come down a little bit, but I think at his price, he'll be good value about that stage. So I think he's still a top 6 option. So I wouldn't be put off by these few down rounds. Blakey is high risk, high reward, I think, as well. Has the ability to go huge. I really don't think you should hold that Geelong game against him too much. No one goes to Geelong and plays well. Geelong beat everyone there. So take that with a grain of salt. I think he'll bounce back. And is a good option. Dane Zorko's risky. He's out of the side, injury prone, not a player that I would look to bring in. But if you want to take that risk at the price, I think he'll score well if he's playing. Callum Mills is a no for me. All of those same issues as Dane Zorko. But it just doesn't have the ceiling to score well. So I just don't know why people would go there. Maybe I'm wrong, but not for me. Tom McCarthy, I think, is playing really well. But I think he would have to you know what? He's starting to build that consistency. I can see the value in this option. Going a West Coast player just seems a little bit. They're just getting belted, right? Those bottom 3 sides. I just think there's a chance that he just doesn't get the opportunity to just score the points. Darcy Wilmot's done really well in the absence of Dane Zorko, but I think his scoring will come back down when Dane Zorko's back in the side. So not one for me, but a really good player. And Xavier Lindsay I've added there because a lot of people get attached to their rookies and they're like, Lindsay's a keeper. He's not. I hate to break it to you, he's not a keeper. All right, so if you think he's maxed out in price and you get an opportunity to put him into a premium, a proper premium, then do it. Because if I showed you his scores and put him next to someone like Nick Blakey, you would be mortified. But because it's next to Xavier Lindsay and we've come to know and like him as a player because he's a rookie that's done really well, doesn't make him a premium that's going to do well. So just keep that in mind. Don't get too attached to your rookies. I think it's a good time to get rid of him now, even though he could spike against Essendon. I think the value, he's basically maxed out in price. So he's not going to go up much in price if he spikes now by the round 15 bye because he's got that low score of 55 or whatever it is in there as well. Midfielders. Heaney's a gun. Super premium. Good option, should be a decent price around that, sort of for what he offers. Should be around that sort of 600k range. Bring him in if he's scoring. He's one I'm definitely looking to get into my side around that. Round 15, Isaac Heaney should be in my side as long as all goes to plan. Lachie Neale is already in my side. I think he's a safe-ish option. Gets heaps to the ball. I really wish Brisbane were winning because then if they're losing, they're sort of prone to change things, but I don't think they can change much with Lockie. He's an inside midfielder, so I don't know if they can really do much. Hugh McCluggage, he's been a tough one for people to have. I've been really negative on Hugh McCluggage and not bring. I thought it was crazy people trading into someone that's averaging 74, and then I've seen sort of people talking about his time on ground's down. It wasn't down that much. I don't know if him playing an extra 5 minutes is really going to lead to him scoring an extra sort of 40 points. And that's why I was very sceptical. Mind you, I can see why people went it. I think maybe they just went too early because I think he's a gun. But maybe we're the ones that are going to be able to get him in at round 15 after the bye. People have maybe jumped off by that stage. And and it only takes him a couple. Like he dishes out another shit one this week, people might jump off, and then I think maybe after round 15s, we're the ones that can sort of make the most of that. If you've got him though, because I would really like to see a change in form. If you got him, I think you just got to ride it out. Maybe I don't even know if you got him. Just all the best, to be honest. Josh Dunkley's similar. I don't know if I'll be trading into a Josh Dunkley. I'm very wary of trading into players that are scoring badly for almost no reason. I'm not saying there's no reason, like he might be injured or might be playing through something. I'm just wary of trading into players that are doing really poorly, assuming they're going to come good. If there's a reason, then I can sort of justify it, but yeah, I just don't know. Zach Merritt, safe option. We spoke about him at the start of the video. Superstar. If you're getting him after round 15 bye and not comparing him to Luke Davies-Uniacke and getting him in at the start of round 13, he's a great option. So I'm a huge fan of Zach Merritt, and I think he could be one that I bring in around this stage, if not an Isaac Heaney, to complete my midfield. Brody Grundy is the ruck option. Superstar, if you need looking for a ruck around this stage, get yourself a Brody Grundy. He's one of the big four. Forwards, McInerney, you're riding the roller coaster. But is an option because you're riding it with a lot of those guys in the forward line. Bailey J. Williams, I think, is a decent option. And this goes back to like assess your team and assess what you need. With Bailey, I just go on his scoring history, and it's been so poor for so long, and he's got such a long history. I don't think the rules have changed that much for him to just all of a sudden become a great Supercoach scorer. I don't think he's a great option. I think he might make some money, but I don't think he's going to end up being a keeper. And I think people, once he starts sort of averaging an 80, I think people are going to be like, oh, it's not that great. So, mind you, he does cover for some, because he's a ruck forward, he does cover for some of the buys. He covers for injuries later in the season if you're short on trades. So, could be an option. There's definitely upside there. If you can average 100, then you're onto a steal. But, yeah, proceed with caution with Bailey Williams. I'm probably just not in the position to take a risk like that. I'm not trying to make up so many points, but I kind of want to be going with more of a safer option. I'll take my risks elsewhere, I think. Tim Kelly, you're riding the roller coaster, injury issues, plays for West Coast. That's a rough one to sell for me. Elliot Yeo, exactly the same. Zach Bailey, I think, at a really reduced price is pretty good because he can give you the spike scores. He's similar to a Shea Bolton, I feel like it. Can give you those scores if you're looking for those massive spikes when you've got a full primo side. Could also be good coverage because he's a DPP. And Milan Murdoch is on there because I think people are trying to see him or trying to project him as a keeper, as an F6, I suppose, with the DPP. He's good coverage. I don't know if he's a keeper, but I think he might be a keeper as coverage. On field, I'd say no. As coverage for injuries, if you can trade other players to get what you want through the buys and you end up with the team that you want and you're like, I've got a Milan Murdoch left over, I think he's great coverage for two positions. And round 16, I think the toughest of the buys. So most teams will have a lot of players from these teams. So the Bulldogs, the Cats, St Kilda, Melbourne. Defenders, so you've got Max Holmes. I think he's a must-have now. He's going to average 115 plus, or has been averaging 115 plus. We've got 11 rounds of history. I think he's going to do that at least, or very close. And he's at a good price now. If you're not getting him in this week, getting him in after the round 16 bye, I think is a definite. Jack Sinclair, obviously a superstar defender as well, averaging I think 110 plus. Good option if you don't have him. Round 16 bye is a good time to bring him in. Nas is a risky one. He runs into a few tags after the round 16 bye, but obviously a superstar, one of the best players in the game. There's a bit of risk and reward with Nas. I think if you can get him, a lot of people have been put off by him earlier in the season. They've traded out. They won't want to do the trade back in thing because people get weird about that stuff. Bring him back in. If you think he's the guy, bring him back in. Callum Wilkie's a really good buy now. It's hard for the buy structure. It doesn't make sense for me, but in terms of value for money, Cal Wilkie's tip-top, right? You're going to be getting a guy that can average 105 or has been averaging 105 for 420, 440K. So bringing him in now is really good if your buy structure allows it. But after the buy is still an option, even though he'll probably be a lot more by that stage. Bailey Dale, I think, is a player that your team was probably complete by this stage, getting very close to complete. And then if he's continued this, and by round 16 you're like, I need the best defender to bring in, he's the guy that I'll be bringing in. Someone like that. I'll be bringing in a guy to complete my team if I'm sure he's going to be top 6. Because at the price now, that's a lot to be paying for someone like Bailey Dale when Max Holmes is there. Tom Stewart, I think he has an ability to be one of those guys, but he's just underperforming this season, a bit more inconsistent. I'd be staying away from Tom Stewart, but could be an option. There's injury and sort of age issues there as well, but could be an option. Jake Bowie has come back in really good form, flying under the radar, kind of like a pod pick. There's obviously injury history there because he's only just come back, but he's basically scored 3 tons in a row and gets used as Melbourne's basically sole distributor. Takes all the kick-ins. I think he's a good option. Your midfielders, so you've got a couple of super premiums here that are really good options to bring in after the bye if you don't have them. But you probably got at least one of them by this stage, if not both. But if you don't, after around 16 buys, obviously a really good time to bring them in. You've got Bailey Smith and Marcus Bontempelli. You probably need them. You need all the super premiums, I feel like it, and then you take the risks in other areas. Ed Richards has the ability to score pretty close to those guys. At this stage now, he's really cheap. If it allows you to buy him, he's just coming off 140. He definitely played through an injury. I'm not so sure he's over those injuries. He obviously had a good game on the weekend, but I'd just be wary. But if he is, I think he's a good risk to take at 5.30. Jack Steele, I wouldn't be going anywhere near. And just because he doesn't have that ceiling, he doesn't have the ceiling of these other guys. Very similar to like a John Newcomb, sort of Jack Steele. And Tanner Bruin, I just got him on there because people think he's a keep. I don't think you're going to be able to keep Tanner Bruin. I think if you really want to compete with those top sides, you're going to need to go somewhere else. Now, the ruck options is kind of like a money-based decision here. I think Tim English is going to be really good value for the price around this stage. And Max Gawn, I think, is one of your super premium guys. So if you're looking at that stage and you're like, well, I'm tight on money, Tim English could be a guy. If you're not so tight on money and want to really finish the season off, and basically a safe option, Max Gawn's your guy. So that's where I'd be going with those two. And then your forward line, you've got Cozzy Pickett, who I think is a good pick. I think he's sort of played better than what his average is, what's unfortunate, but definitely a great pick to have in your sides. And around that stage, if he's a decent price, if you don't have him already, could bring him in to finish your forward line. Riley Sanders the same. I think with Libba out, even if Libba comes back in, I think they're wary about taking the role away from Riley Sanders now. I think he's taken that role. He's playing really well for a young player to be playing as well as he is. I think he's averaging 100 plus for the last few rounds. Great option. Max Hall, I would love to see what his role is after Nas comes back. If Nas comes back and he stays in midfield, he could be a bargain pick. So I'd be wary over the next few weeks. Just keep an eye on Max Hall as your F6. And he's also got DPP, what's handy. Rowan Marshall, if TDK goes down at any stage, this is the pick. So even without that, he's still averaging well. But if TDK goes down at any stage, Rowan Marshall is a great pick. His average will shoot up. He'll be, I think, a must-have. And good coverage for your ruckman for late in the season injuries. I really like Rowan Marshall. So I think he's a great option, even without TDK getting injured. A goodish option, but if he gets injured, he's the best option. Anyway, that's our navigating the buys video. So I hope you guys got something out of that and were able to learn something for your teams and take something constructive out of it. If not, my bad. Like, I did my best to give you guys a video that's a little bit different to sort of like a round review or just talking about what my team is doing in specific. If this is a video that you liked, comment that, like the video in general. Do whatever you can to sort of get my content seen, and it gives me the ability to make more of these videos. So like, subscribe, comment, and thanks for joining me for the video. And I'll make one later in the week, and I'll catch up with you guys soon, I'm sure. So take it easy, and